is Tor Freeman, and I'm an author and an illustrator and a comic book maker. This is my desk where I do all my work. It's got some favourite pictures of mine put up and some books by other artists who I find to be very inspirational. And here are some of my books. As you can see, I do picture books, and I'm also very interested in comic books, which, as you'll see, have quite a lot in common with storyboarding anyway. So, what is a storyboard? I have a couple of examples here of my own, and we'll look at these in more detail in a little bit. But essentially, they are a plan, a sequence of images which plan out a narrative or a story visually. You can see they have a lot in common with comics. They're a series of boxes or panels which tell a story in themselves. Storyboarding is something that happens early on in the process of making a picture book or a comic, or indeed animated film or live action film. Any story that is going to be told primarily visually can benefit with starting out with a storyboard. As an illustrator, you usually start out making a book with one of two things. For this book I did, Bricks, it was written by the author Katie Cotton. So the first thing I had was just the text. And that's literally some writing on a piece of paper. But I know then what I have to illustrate, and I can work on characters, but I can also sort of go straight to storyboard and start plotting out the key parts of the story. The other thing you might have as an illustrator when you're starting a book is nothing. If you're writing the book yourself, you might not have an idea yet. I get my ideas originally from drawing characters. So when I did my book, The Toucan Brothers, which I wrote myself, I'd just been drawing characters in a sketchbook. And one day I'd drawn these two, and I didn't really know anything about them. I just knew that they were toucans. They were dressed in boiler suits and they carried plumbing equipment. And in my sketch, they were fixing a leaking tap. So I started to think about who they were, what their personalities were like, what their motivation might have been. I wondered about where they lived, their setting, which is always important in a story. Because they were dressed in clothes, I didn't visualise them living in a nest in the jungle. I thought, they'd be in a human city somewhere. Once I had the setting, I'm thinking about them more and the characters around them. I thought that their main thing that was important to them were being good plumbers. And that started me thinking about a conflict with a bad plumber who'd come to town and try and steal all their clients. So that started giving me a plot. And once I had a plot, the makings of a plot, I was ready to move to making a storyboard. That's where the storyboard comes in. So let's take a bit of a closer look at that. So this was a book that I illustrated, written by Rachel Wilitsky and David Sidoroff, called Good Dogs in Bad Sweaters. And the first thing was I knew that I could have 30 illustrations. That's how much they wanted. So I had to decide on the key moments that would be illustrated. And that was just looking through the text. And then, as you can see here, I've plotted out, there are 30 of these thumbnails, plotted out these key moments in the text. And you can see, so this is one where the good dogs are all playing in a park. And that turned into this picture. And as you can see, there's not a huge difference between the two of them. Another example is where the family go and meet Father Christmas. And again, that was the first thumbnail of that. So you can see, although the pictures, the thumbnails are very rough, they give a good idea of the moments that I've decided to illustrate in the book. This was the same with Bricks by Katie Cotton. Just had the text to start with, and we broke it down, decided on the most important things that we wanted to show in the book. So here are the thumbnails. This was the first page where we see the pig looking out over the land, and you can see it's changed a bit because there were some extra pictures here. This one didn't change very much. Here's the pig going into town and meeting the builders. He's going to get to build his house, and as you can see, there isn't a big difference there. So that's an example of some storyboarding that we can see close up. Storyboarding is interesting because of how the pictures interact with each other. Our brains are used to reading stories chronologically, which means in the order of time that we expect things to happen in. So we wake up, we have our breakfast, we go to school. Therefore, if we see a picture of someone falling over, and then the next picture is the same someone crying, we think that the second picture is as a result of the first. Our brains connect the two drawings together. But what if we move these two pictures around? Do they tell a different story now? In this way, we can see that the order that we put our pictures together is very important. Perhaps this guy was already crying and then he got up and fell over, sort of compounding the really terrible day he's having. It can be really intimidating to begin any project, and it'd be difficult to know where to begin. I'm going to show you an exercise to get our story brains working. And if you'd like to join in, all you need is some A4 printer paper, a pen or a pencil, and some scissors. There's a downloadable worksheet, which I'm putting up along with this, and you can follow along with the video as well. Let's go. So first thing we will do is fold our piece of printer paper into 4. And this is just so that we can get 4 even pieces of paper. So open it up, and then you can use the fold lines to cut it up with scissors. You can rip them along the fold lines, but that can tear. Depends how confident you are at ripping along the folds. Okay, so there we go. Oops. Now we've got 4 identical pieces of paper, identical size pieces of paper. I'll put that away for now. Now, we're going to lay them in landscape format. So that's portrait, if you were to paint a portrait, and that's landscape. And that's a more common way of laying out a storyboard. And on our first picture, we're going to draw a character, just quite a simple character. And the emphasis here is on storytelling and making a story, not on beautiful, realistic drawings. You could even do stick figures if you find that easier. Now it's difficult, as I spoke before, when you have a blank page to know where to begin. So on the worksheet, I've done a few prompts. So character prompts: cat in trousers, alien, worm with a hat, robot, or wizard. Or of course, feel free to choose your own, but these are just to get your brain thinking. I think I am going to choose a cat in trousers because I like drawing cats. So in this first picture, we're just going to do a really simple character. I'm just going to draw my cat looking out at us. He's got a little button nose. And you take as long as you like to draw your character. There's no hurry. If you need to stop the video and take a little bit longer, that's okay. Now remember, my cat's in trousers, so I'm going to give him some nice trousers there. See, now already something exists that didn't exist before. I've conjured forth this cat, and that's already giving me things to think about. So I've got a cat there. Now I'm going to get my next piece of paper to do the next panel in the storyboard. Now on the next piece of paper, we're going to do what happens next. That's what you're always thinking about when you're making a story. What happens next? Again, blank piece of paper. So if you need a little bit of help, I've drawn some prompts, written some prompts. What could happen next? Another character appears. A spaceship lands. There's a weird weather event, or the character falls down. I'm going to go for another character appears. And remember, you could do anything you like. It doesn't have to be one of these. These are just prompts. So for me, another character appears to see my cat. Okay, I know what I'm going to have appear. I'm going to have the cat looking at the new character who's appearing. Still smiling. It's a very friendly cat. His whisker holes there. I think he's going to be waving. Get his trousers with the nifty checks. It's a very fashionable cat. Okay, and who's appearing? I think I'm going to have this jolly bird. And there are his footsteps. Again, you don't have to worry about any of this being realistic. It's just to get a story down. Now we have already a story. What could be happening here? We've got this cat, and now a new character is appearing, a bird. We've got two pieces of paper next. So now I want us to do two very different endings. We're going to make them as different as possible, so you see the possibilities for where a story could go. Now, for this one, I've got these two characters. How are they going to interact? Okay, in my first picture, my first ending, I think it's going to be really simple. The cat is just going to see the bird walk on by. Put his hands on his hips there. Oh dear, his trousers have gotten a bit shorter in this one. Never mind. The bird's got his eyes closed. He's pretty nonchalant. He doesn't care. He's not too bothered about this cat. Bye, cat. He just walks on. Give some movement lines to show the cat's waving. All right, so there we've got a completed story. It's not the most exciting story in the whole world. It's not going to set the world alight with its excitement, but it's a story that didn't exist 5 minutes ago. So now I'm going to do a completely different ending. What would be something almost opposite of that? Well, I've already got an idea. Maybe you can guess what I'm going to do. What if this cat isn't such a nice cat after all? What if this has happened? Oh dear. Those little feathers. And he's rubbing his belly. So we've gone from a happy ending to a tragic ending, if you're on the bird side anyway. If you're on the cat side, maybe it's still a happy ending. There we go. So you can see we started 5 minutes ago with absolutely nothing, and now you've got two different stories. And either those are the endings or they're just the beginnings, the jumping off point for new places to go. So you can see already how we're branching out here. If you then added two to this one, two different possibilities for that story, two different possibilities for that story. Maybe the cat gets indigestion, has to be rushed to hospital. Maybe a giant bird, the mother of this bird, comes along and eats the cat. The possibilities are limitless. So there, I hope you've enjoyed that workshop. So that's the end of my how to storyboard. I hope you enjoyed it and that it gave you some idea of all the possibilities of how to make storyboards, comics, thumbnails, how to start thinking about stories and all the unexpected things that can happen when you lay down a couple of panels and start thinking about characters. Thanks for joining in. Bye.